first started going out, we weren't really even girlfriend and boyfriend. It was really early days in our relationship. We decided to go away on a dirty weekend. Give us a cheer if you've ever been on a dirty weekend. There's a lot of you, but there will be more of you, but you will have just realised that it wasn't with the person you're sitting beside. Woo! Oh, no! I'd never been on a dirty weekend. I didn't know what sorts of things you're supposed to take. Let's get some suggestions from you guys. Let's start at the top, because that worked well last time. Anybody in the top level want to shout out what you think you take on a... God, I haven't even finished the fucking sentence, love. There's a lady said handcuffs. What kind of handcuffs? Furry. Oh. It was last time I was working in Newcastle, a lady was on this level and she shouted out, handcuffs, like that. And I said, oh, have you got the heavy duty ones or the fluffy ones? And she said, I'm not telling you that, I'm sitting beside me, ma'am. You still shouted out fucking handcuffs. There was a fella the other day shouted out a bag of lube, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it comes in a tube. I imagined it being like an Asda bag for life, and he just dipped himself in every now and again. Anybody else upstairs want to shout? A rabbit. Oh, sorry. I thought for a minute I was like, no. You mean, yeah, because I was in Cheltenham and 3 people shouted out rabbit one after the other, and I thought, fucking hell, Chaz and Dave are in. Next level down, upper circle. Anybody got a suggestion what you take on a dirty weekend?
Anal beads.
Where are you? Where's... Hello, Flower. Anal beads. Wow. Have you... Why am I whispering? I'm in the microphone. Nobody else is listening, Flower. Have you got anal beads?
I've got plenty of things.
Okay. I've got loads of things. I've got, handbag and that. Is that the most extreme thing you've got, love?
No.
Didn't think it was. Now tell me about anal beads. They go up your arsehole. I figured that bit out myself. Can you still wear them as jewellery after that, though? Yes. Just make sure you've always got brown earrings and then you're fine. Anybody else in the top 2 sections?
Willy warmers.
A willy warmer. Why is it going to be so cold? I feel sad for the willy, do you? I mean, there is some way you could keep it warm, love. That's not an offer. Fuck, that sounded like a date. Why would you take a willy warmer, love?
Mine's always cold.
Mine's always cold. Have you tried just giving it a good roll? Let's come down the grand circle, anybody?
Cucumber.
A cucumber? Fuck you, I'm not taking salad. Anybody else in this middle section? Cake, where are you, love? Now you're fucking talking. Now, is the cake for eating or like for... I don't know what that was. I was going to say smearing, but that feels like a really bad word. Smearing. Is the cake for smearing or for eating, love? Everything, or a little bit of both. I like that. There was a lady the other day said chocolate body paint, and I said, well, only if I can paint it on my palms and lick it off myself, because I'm not fucking sharing. No, you stay where you are, love. No, it's definitely you making me do those noises. There was another lady shouting, shout again, love. Bread. A friend. Bread. It was a couple of weeks ago, somebody shouted out creme fraiche, and I thought, ooh. And then when I got off stage, she sent me a message on Twitter saying, no, I said femme fraiche. Oh. Anybody else in that section?
Ball gag.
A ball gag? That's something you haven't got, isn't it, love? There was a lady said, bondage gear. And I said, do you tie your partner up or does your partner tie you up? And she said, I tie him up and then I fuck off. Now let's do the rest of the boxes. And anybody downstairs got a suggestion what you take on a dirty weekend? What was that? Hold on. A what? A blow? Did you really say a blowtorch? In case you fancied a creme brulee? And was there another one over here? Where's the Viagra? Where did you... That you there? Oh, how you doing? You all right, love? Does that work for you? That's how she was made. Has she just found out as well, or? Oh, look at her, she's mortified. So is it, lovely girl, hello, is it good to know that your dad had a proper all weekend? 2 nights in a row. What about the bit, like the daytime? Is it like that through the day as well? Or, you know, how'd you get your clothes on? You just push it down, and then does it like boing? I'm always disappointed they don't do that noise. Boing. Wow. It was Butlins. Viagra at Butlins. Sounds like a Mills and Boone, doesn't it? There was a lady said crotchless pants, and I thought, well, I've often got a hole in, but it's never in the right place. But one thing you've forgotten as well is if you're going to take your rabbit, if you're going to take you've got to take batteries. You've got to take spare batteries because you don't want to turn into wow. Wow. All I'm doing now is stirring it. I rang my fella before we went away and I said to him, I've been to family planning, and he must have thought this isn't going to be sexy at all. I said, I've got some condoms because I'd heard they were free there and I love a bargain. And he said, well, that's good. I said, I've got 36, do you think that'll be enough? And quick as a flash, he just went, well, you can leave 32 of them at home. And I thought, that's still 4 though, isn't it? And he went, well, use 2 of those for water balloons. Good to know that he had activities planned, though. But I feel like the pre-sex routine, the preparation before sex, if you like, it's very different for men as it is for women. For example, the first thing I do is I put my sex glasses on. They're varifocals. So I can see what's going on, what's coming. Maybe you try an activity. A friend of mine told me her and her partner tried a bit of role play where they pretended they'd never met before to make it a bit sexier. We've done a version of that. We sometimes pretend we're people who aren't tired. And he pretends I'm a woman who shaved her legs. I spend proper time on the preparation, or proper time. One of the first things I do is I hack it back. Some of you know what I mean, some of you aren't so sure. If you're not sure what I mean, I'm sure you've seen a nature documentary where somebody has to clear a path with a machete. It's a bit like that. Can't always see what I'm doing down there. There's lots of boobs and bellies in the way. Sometimes I set up a complicated system of mirrors. Most I just do it by feel. And they say childbirth is painful, and I'm sure it is, but it can't be as bad as nipping a lip in your craft scissors. Even now, whenever I trim the fat off bacon, I get flashbacks. I don't trim the fat off bacon. I treat my pre-sex routine like I'm trying to sell a house. Clear away excess foliage, Febreze the soft furnishings, familiar bread smell, yeast. It's different for blokes though, isn't it? In my limited experience, straight men just wash their cocks, that's it. It's just Not even always all of it, sometimes just the end part. Of course, some of them have to wash all the chalk off. And I said to my husband, I said, horses do more than you. He said, what? I said, horses do more than you. It's true, I've got a friend, she's got a horse. Her horse has a special lady who comes out just to wash his knob. I mean, how do you get into that? And by that, I don't mean, how do you get into that? Also, how at the end of your tether as a careers advisor are you before you slam shut your folder and go, how are you a horse's cocks? It's done for medical reasons, it's done for health reasons. They do it because they have to clear out what are called smeg beans, which are exactly what you think they are. But don't they also sound a little bit like something you could get from IKEA? I only went in for nested tables, came out with a massive bag of smeg beans. I was trying to explain to my husband what they were, and I sort of nervously Googled it. You know, Google has a habit of finishing the rest of the search for you. And I typed in smeg beans, and Google went, smeg beans grinder. And I was like, how bad are they? Like, you have to grind them off. And then I realised it's a posh coffee machine, isn't it? Smeg beans grinder. Oh. Also explains why John Lewis had it in 4 different colours. Thanks for watching. You know what would be great is if you liked and subscribed. I'm so needy, I'm so sorry. And why not come and see me live? And the tickets are available at sarahmillican.co.uk. Put the kettle on and settle in.